Hey, thanks for joining us on this video. Today, we are gonna be talking about the Shadowlight. One, how to set it up properly when you first get your pack, and two, some of the tips and tricks that we've derived from using this pack through all of the R&D stages. So stay tuned to the end, get those tips and tricks, and we'll first dive into getting this set up properly for you. So the first thing we're gonna do is pull this thing out of the packaging as if you were just pulling it out at your own home, and we're gonna get this set up properly for you. So I've got Brigham here, our lead designer, and he's gonna walk us through that process.
Okay, so the first thing you wanna do, you're gonna get it out of the packaging. It's obviously not gonna be full, but you wanna give it a look over and make sure that everything that you're expecting to be there is there. Hip belt, shoulders, webbing, straps, everything is there. Second, you wanna just verify that you got the correct torso height and hip belt size. So the size is on the hip belt and the torso measurement is on the side of the main pack bag right there. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have everything unbuckled. This is how it'll come. So you unbuckle the hip belt and kind of spread that apart. And you want to make sure that the hip belt is centered and placed all the way down to the bottom of the back pad. So on this pack here, you can see it's actually a little bit crooked and not totally centered. So we're gonna go ahead and show you how to fix that right now. What I like to use is either like our catalog or a checklist. That helps you get underneath the Velcro as you separate it, and it keeps it from sticking back to itself. Helps you just kind of move things around a lot easier. So I'll actually put one on both sides because the Velcro is very strong. And now you can see you can slide it in or up and down, out, left, right, up and down. But all you wanna do is just slide that all the way down, and then visually just check that it's all the way at the bottom of the pad and centered, and then just kind of hold it in place and pull those out, grab it a little bit, and you're good to go. Okay, so next you just want to make sure everything's unbuckled and your webbing is loosened anywhere there's a tensioner. So this is the load lifter. The next thing after you've loosened all the webbing and unbuckled everything is there's this 3-bar slider right here. You need to slide this down to a bar tack that's right there. That will help you get the best load lift that you could possibly get.
All right, so we got it out of the packaging. We've got it all set up. Now let's get it set up for me and my torso. The first thing you're going to do is load this up with about 15 to 20 pounds worth of weight, and then go ahead and put it on and get adjusting. All right, so we've got the bag on. We've got all of the strappings loose, and the first place we're going to start is with the hip belt. Now, the first thing you're going to want to avoid is putting your hip belt down here. This hip belt should sit up where it is going to be centered on your hip bone, which is going to be more close to your navel or belly button on the front side. Now, I could probably use a large hip belt. This is a medium, but for reference, that's where you're going to want that hip belt to be. After you get the hip belt adjusted and firmed up, you're going to adjust your shoulder straps here. You can see how loose and floppy that is. You're going to want to get those snugged down, and you're going to want to get them pulled as even as you can to the point where they're touching your shoulders and you can kind of feel in here, they're hugging it. The load is still being carried a lot by my hips right here, my waist I should say, and these are just hugging my shoulders. Then we're gonna move to the load lifters. So I'm gonna reach right up here and I'm going to just snug those down a little bit until I can feel that tension start to lift just a hair. Once you get these load lifters snugged down a little bit, there's a few things you wanna look for that Brigham's gonna talk about right here.
Okay, so on the load lifter adjustment, one of the things that Tayson kind of covered is being able to easily run your fingers under the shoulder strap without forcing it. Then you're going to have mild tension here. It doesn't need to be pulling the top of the backpack forward against your body. You can just see there's a easy straight line there, and there's just good tension. Vertically, the top of the pack and the bottom of the pack are pretty much straight up or vertical, and looks like that's a pretty good adjustment right there.
So maybe one or two things that we'd want to help people know straight out of the gate is this torso is not adjustable. You're buying that torso. What would be an indicator of buying the wrong torso size?
Okay, so say his torso size was smaller than he needs. He's gonna feel that because this point of the shoulder strap here is gonna be too low on his body. So he's gonna feel downward pressure there. The top of the frame is also going to sit lower than is desirable, so that load lifter point is not as high as we want it to get a good, comfortable load lift.
Yeah, so I'm 6'2", 6'3", and typically I just classify myself as a taller person. So when I first started buying backpacks and torso sizes, I just went with a large or a tall or whatever I wanted to call it. But even in this one, I am a medium. When I put on a tall, where it connects back in here ends up being a little bit too high, and I start to feel it, and that load lifter can't do its job. So pay attention and make sure that this is curving just around the top of that shoulder, not going down too far. But if it's sitting flat, if it's coming off your shoulder and going straight back to the pack, you've got too tall of a torso. So the very last thing you're gonna do when you're setting up your backpack, which some people do very first, is you're gonna be doing your sternum strap. Now when you do your sternum strap, you do not want to over tighten this. So you're just going to snug it up just a little bit so there's a little bit of tension. And on me, I'm gonna slide this one down so it's going just across that portion of my chest. Now this is a little bit tight right now, and a good indicator would be if I've got this where that is really taking pressure and pulling that forward, that's way too tight. The sternum strap is really there just to hold those shoulder straps in place so that they don't migrate and move. So a couple other indicators that you can look for to make sure you've got the pack on here right and adjusted right is that this buckle right here should be ending right there in that armpit area. If it's too high or coming down too low, you may need to look at a different torso size as well. And the very last thing that we wanted to say with this is now that you've got everything all set up here, make sure you don't do too much more adjustments, and it'll be much easier to get this on and off and keep it in the right spot. Typically when we're going out there, we might have to do some micro tweaks once you've set up the pack once, but you shouldn't have to do these big checklist of tweaks every single time you're going out. All right, so you've got your pack out of the packaging, you've got it adjusted to you, you've got some weight in here. Now let's talk about some tips and tricks for when you go out and hit the trail and best practices to get the most out of your Shadowlight.
Okay, so the first thing I want to cover is basically just packing. You want to have proper load distribution, so you don't want heavy items down at the bottom. You want your heaviest items closest to your back, kind of in the middle of the pack height-wise. So I'll often put just like the lightest item, a top quilt or a sleeping bag at the bottom, some heavier stuff at the middle, and then filler stuff or lighter items back at the top. The idea is it's the most controllable part of your body, and the weight is close to your back. Another tip with packing and balance is load distribution. Don't pack things really asymmetrically, so don't load up a bunch of weight on one side versus the other. Utilize the symmetrical exterior pocketing to create a good balance that will help you ride very comfortably down the trail. And then the last packing tip is just utilize the exterior pocketing to maximize efficiency so you don't have to get inside the pack throughout the day. Okay, one of the unique features on this pack is our center zip. It provides excellent access, but one of the tips we have is you'll see right now the two sliders are positioned at the top. I like to position these down at the bottom so that if you're ducking under a tree or something, nothing can catch one of those sliders and unzip your backpack and empty your contents. Another tip is regarding compression. We utilize these removable compression clips that are with tensioner on cord. On these, snug in some of the weight to keep the weight close to your body so it's not pulling down and away from your body. So make sure to snug these up. You don't have to pull them very hard and create a ton of tension. Just snug them up on both sides. And then on the uppers, they're integrated into the pocketing, so as you secure the contents, you're also making your load ride a lot better on the upper portion of the backpack.
The last piece that I'll add there too is this top piece right here. This is additional compression. Yes, when you roll this, it will bring this in, but this piece right here does pull that load up and into your back, which also is very noticeable when you hit the trail.
Okay, so we designed and built this backpack to last. We built it for the long haul with high quality materials and fabrics. However, my dad always taught me to take care of your gear. He said if you take care of your gear, it will take care of you, and I believe that 100%. So common sense things, if you can avoid throwing your backpack down on sharp rocks at the end of a day when you're really tired, try to avoid that. If you even can hang it on a branch versus putting it down in sand or mud, try to do that when it's available. Things like keeping it clean. On a long trail, on a long trip, it's hard to keep it clean, but when you get back, go ahead and spray it off with a hose or wash it in the bathtub or fill a tote with a bunch of water and just rinse off all that sand and dirt. It'll last you a lot longer. One other thing is kind of related to packing. Avoid packing loose food in your backpack or avoid keeping food in your backpack while you're asleep. Rodents will come through and destroy your backpack. It sounds crazy, but it happens all the time. Even if you have like a food spill or a mess, try and clean those up as soon as you can so that it's not attracting rodents that will chew right through the toughest of fabrics.
All right, so now you've got the tips and tricks down to get the most out of your Shadowlight. You've got it fitted for you, and you're ready to hit the trail with your Shadowlight. But there's one other thing that many of you won't realize is a part of this pack. It's something that I use a ton. Even if I'm bringing a seat, a Helinox chair, something like that, I'm still using this, which is this back panel. You can easily pop this out, use that as a seat pad while you're on the trail, or sometimes I'll just put my feet on it to keep them out of my boots and out of the dirt. It's super useful, so don't forget to use that. Thanks for joining us on this. We're super excited for you to take your Shadowlight on the trail. We know you're gonna love it, and we hope to see you out there.